So let's now talk about session persistence across page refreshes and then JSON Web Token authentication on some of the Google Cloud functions. So the way that this works is that this basically works through cookies, and this is a cookie here that's stored called connect.sid, and if the correct cookie matches the session, then the session data is passed from the server and hydrates the session store on the svelte side. So if I'll just prove that to you by putting a breakpoint in here, the server.js file in Sapper. So refresh the page, comes in here, and you see this cookie cn0. If we go into the request object, we can see that there is a session, and this ID matches what we have on the client, and this is the cookie information. Okay, so if I just continue the page, you can see that we are logged in with this information goes into the session store. Now if we go in here and delete this cookie, right, and then refresh the page, and look at the session object now. So we have a new session, but of course we have no matching cookie on the client, so of course there's not going to be any login information, so we'll be logged out in the client now. So you can see we're logged out. So that is pretty much how it works, just for the cookie persistence across session. There is a lot of magic in there. You just got to have to just study, express sessions to see how it works, to fully understand what's going on. But svelte is kind of nice. It gives us this persistent information across server side, rendering all the routes, etc., etc. Now let's go on to talk about the tokens management. So the way that the application works is that there's two ways to do it. There's a proxy through backend files, sapper files, and the token stored on this express session there. And then the token is sent over to the Google Cloud Functions and then validated for protected routes on Cloud Functions. And that's all the stuff that you see inside the auth folder here. So for example, if we look at this save here, which saves a user, we can see that the token is pulled from the express session, which of course doesn't go to the client, so it's quite secure. And this is a proxy that is called from certain functions with on this svelte application. Now there are some routes that don't bother proxying requests through the auth folder, and they come from just inside of the svelte file. So for example, I think there's a comment folder. So okay, so there's one here called api.delete, and you can see here that this client-side file is passing the JSON Web Token direct from the user. So we're sort of skipping over this and just going straight to the endpoint. So it's quite interesting. I'm not really sure why they decided to do two approaches. I guess in a real world situation, then if you were going to proxy some requests through the auth folder, then I would probably do them all. So anyway, let's just go and talk about the authentication side for protected routes. So of course, when you register and log in, all that kind of stuff, then there's no protection. So for example, if we go to the register or the create for user, so let's see, create. So on the create, you see that there's no token verification, but we just check to see the emails are not taken and usernames are not taken. However, for protected routes, we actually check to see what token is there, and we set this variable called validated user. And for some of the protected routes, like for example, posting data to the user, let me see, no, not that one. For example, put to user, you can see here that they actually check to see validated user, and they send an error tokens required if it's not valid. And the validated user token, we get that it comes from the token on authorization header, and the header contains a JSON Web Token. Sorry if that was quite a lot, but let me just take you through it in both ways So we'll show you first from when the user decides to save something data-wise. So now I'm going to show you the flow from a proxied route request that goes to the sapper auth folder and how the token is handled. So that is done on the settings page. So we're just going to change a field here and click update settings. Okay, so let's change the email and click update settings. Okay, so what we've done is that we're being proxied through to the auth save folder here. And that of course has come from, actually I should have put a breakpoint here. We've just come through here, this is on the svelte side, and we're calling the proxy auth save. And when that comes back, we're going to get the updated user. So what we're doing is we're actually pulling the token from the client. Sorry, this is coming from the express session because this is server-side stuff, remember. And this token will be passed along as in the header. So on this API.put, which is a sort of helper function, there's this send here, and send will actually go in and set the headers with the actual token value. So we can see here that the headers is now set to this here. So we've got this thing called token, all the stuff, application JSON. So now I'm going to press continue, and it's going to fire off to the Google Clouds. And we can see here that we've already passed through these validated things. So what we're doing there is basically we're getting out of the header and then checking to see if the token matches a username in here. So that's what's going on there. And then if we get the correct user, which we do have one that matches the database, we actually go ahead and then update the user with this user here. So we can just step into that. So we go to user and update. I think I've got it there set. Okay, so we've got the current user, and then we've got the user mutation. And there is a bug on this implementation actually, because if you don't change the email, it actually checks to see if the email is not taken and throws an error. That doesn't happen on the actual real conduit implementation. This is just a svelte application that has this sorry, this is only the Google Cloud version of the backend for real world that has this particular bug. So anyway, it checks to see, it locates the key and then just checks to see that there is a user there. And this is where it's more of a patch than a put, because we're only changing fields that are changed, right? So this one here, we actually check to see that the email is not the same, and then we actually set the user to this this new email here, and we then go and then go through all the stuff. Well, actually, it is a kind of a put because it's only changing the fields that are modified, but it's getting the whole user object. So I should probably delete that issue because it is correct actually. So let's continue, and then actually go and then update the user with this these values here. So user. So that goes and updates the value in the database. It is a really bit challenging to debug this sometimes. Let's just go to our, let's just go to see the data is correct. So running on 18083, I think. So that's the current email. And then after that gets executed, we should have an updated email in the database, which we do. And then we return the updated object to the wherever it ends up. Okay, is that updated? The UI could be better sometimes. Oh, I think it timed out on me. Right, so let me just do that again, but of course not let it time out, and we'll just skip through some of the debugging. So we'll just refresh the page. Okay, that was a nice little flash of unstyled content there. That's symptoms of putting lots of breakpoints and stuff like that in there. So let's just sign in again. Oh, we'll use the correct email this time. Was it B? Right, and let's go to settings. Right, and we'll just update the email there. And we'll just change the email again, make it B. Click update settings. We're going to post to the proxy. We're going to just fire ahead here on the proxy. I'm just going to fire ahead. Oh, I should put a breakpoint up there at some point to show you that, but maybe some other time. I'm going to skip the update, and then hopefully it's not timed out on us. No, it hasn't this time. So we've got a response back from the save, and of course we have the new data, and then we update the session with the new data because we're not going through the hydration step that we do from the express session. So we want to get these user objects throughout the application hydrated at this point, and hopefully everything looks fine. And that's everything worked nice there. Okay, so now we've showed you the proxied version, so let's just go to an unproxied version where we're creating like an article or something. So we'll click on new post. I'm going to create a small post here. We'll go through this detail in the next video, but we're just going to show you this is going to go to the back end without going through the proxy. So when we click publish, we're going to go to the API, and it's going to go straight in there. So we're going to come into the send method, and this is of course it's going to post it directly to the base pass, and this is going to skip the proxy. So that's going to come into the router. So I'll just show you that, and we come in here, and we've come through the router, we've gone through authentication, and we're just going to create the article. And if I press F8 here, we should come back in and we get an article. So we can see the article there. And what we'll do, actually, I'll put a breakpoint because I want to show you this, prove that this works to you. We're just going to put in here, post another article, and we're going to make sure that, let me just skip this because I'm doing some stuff here. We're going to show you the authentication handling, publish article, and so what it does is it gets the token, so it extracts the token from the string. 2 seconds, why is that? Okay, we've got a token here, and then what it does is that it checks to see what it authenticates a token. So what it does is it decrypts the token here, and then checks to see if that user exists on the database. So we see here we have this JWT, we have our token secret and the token, and then we get this decoded name out like this. Username, and we just do a check on the data store with that decoded username to see if we get a result, and of course we get a result, and then we just pass back the user, which is then used in the rest of the flow. So that is basically it. That's all I wanted to show you. Of course we skipped the proxy here through the svelte auth folder, and that is pretty much how the authentication is handled with tokens. So hope you liked that episode, and next episode I'm going to talk about storing articles in the database. Thank you.